Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 12 o'clock on a Sunday, which means it's time for a Q&A. Now, this is where I take all the questions that you've answered over the course of the week, and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. I'm filming this in Columbus, Ohio, so if it's not the normal place that I'm filming, I apologise. Now, a few things that you need to know. If I don't answer your question, I'm very sorry. I tend to film these on a Wednesday, so if you don't get your question into me by Wednesday, then I'm going to miss it. You're going to have to answer it, ask it down below, and I promise I'll answer it. I'll get to it next week. Also, if you're new to the Q&A, you're getting my raw, unfiltered opinions. I haven't even read the questions. You're getting my off-the-cuff answers. In other words, if I think that a question is going to take a bit of thought, or it's going to take like a long time to answer, I'll probably make that the basis of a video that I will produce in the future, so keep watching out for that. And outside of that, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into the channel. The reason I do Magic TV is because of you guys, and I really appreciate every single one of you. So thank you so much. I hope you're having a good week. I hope you're having a great weekend, and we're going to get straight into this with this week's Q&A. Okay, so the first question is from TV Elliot, who says, "Hi Craig, hey, how you doing? I'm putting together a parlor coin act, and I'd love to produce a glass with liquid in it to open up a coins to glass section. I don't know if a bottle production gimmick would work, as I'm not entirely sure of the method these use. So my best current option seems to be the appearing glass from Vanishing ink. I really do like the visual of the glass appearing in a silk though, so I'm wondering if you know something like this. Thanks for everything, Tom." So you're wanting to produce a glass with liquid in it to start a coins to glass. I mean, look, appearing glass will work. That will look absolutely brilliant. That will work. There's no problem with that as well, at all. The classic way of producing a coin, get Stand-Up Magic from by Tom Wright, and that's a fantastic DVD. Old now, but a great DVD, and in it, he teaches his bottle production, which could be applied to a glass very, very simply. And the idea is that he takes a coin, he puts it into a silk, it vanishes, it reappears. He does some basic coin manipulation with a silk, and then in the context of then producing the coin one final time, he pulls the silk back, and there's a bottle there. There could very easily be a glass of liquid there as well. That would work really well. And as long as you're wearing a jacket, that's not a problem. There's no clothing restrictions. Now, one other method is to use David Penn's variation of the Pat Page glass from sleeve. Now, he published this many, many years ago. You might still be able to get it from World Magic Shop. It was in his lecture DVD from many, many years ago. It's the same lecture DVD that had Into the Circle to the Fourth Dimension, which is still, in my opinion, one of the best coin routines of all time. But this particular, and I used to open my coin act with this. That's why I'm actually suggesting this. So in the actual context of how Dave does this, and as I say, he based it on the Patrick Page thing, is that you take your jacket off, and as you pull your sleeve, your arm out of the sleeve, you've got a glass in your hand full of liquid, and it looks amazing because it's like, where could it have come from? You just take your jacket off and you produce a glass of liquid from out the sleeve. It looks amazing. Now, what I used to do many years ago is I do a coins across. I produce 3 coins and I do a coins across. And then, before I went on with some other coin stuff, I'd say, now you're probably wondering how it works. Some people think it uses the sleeve. It doesn't use the sleeve. And I know it doesn't use the sleeve because in the sleeve there wouldn't be room for the coins to go up because I've got a giant glass of liquid. I'd produce the glass of liquid, drink it, and then I'd go into a coins to glass. So there's 3 different options for you. They all work. Look, the appearing glass is great. That's not a problem at all. But there's another couple of options for you. Okay, so the next question is from Magic Elliot, who says, "Hey, by the way, mate, I hope you're well. Long time no speak. On Saturday, I got Gatekeeper from Monster Magic." Well, thank you very much. For those of you that don't know, Gatekeeper is the second key trick I brought out through Penguin. The first was obviously Keymaster in 2022, and in 2023, I brought out Gatekeeper, which is designed to match the gimmicks of Keymaster. So the whole idea is that you can expand the hole down the stem of the key. And he says, "I'd asked Alex about one trick, but then changed my mind and went for Gatekeeper. Alex sent me both with the original trick thrown in as a present. What a man." Alex is the man. He is the man. There's no other way to describe him. Alex, Monster Magic, I love those guys. So here's the question. I wondered if you could use Gatekeeper as a penetration effect under a paper napkin. The spectator holds the shaft under the napkin, and you push a coin through the napkin, penetrating the head of the key. You then switch back as the napkin is removed. Have you tried anything like this before? No, I haven't, but that's absolutely a genius idea. I think what you'd have to do is you'd have to make sure that the spectator knew that there was no way that the coin could go around the key. Like maybe if they took the key and held one end and then held they held the stem of the key at the very end and they held the head of the key and then you covered it up with the napkin. I could see that working really well, and the napkin would provide cover to do the switch back and forth. I think that's an amazing idea, and yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think that's really good. I'm definitely going to try that. You should as well. Let me know how you get on with it, but that is a really, really, really good idea. Okay, so the next question is from AI Reality 84, who says, what are your thoughts on AI to produce you a working set? Here's an example that I've put in. Setting, oh my god, an intimate setting, perhaps a small table with you and the participant, minimal props are visible, adding to the mystery, introduction, build rapport, setting the stage, good morning, afternoon, evening, thanks for joining me. This is long, so I'm going to kind of just, you can read this yourself on the Q&A last week. This will take me about 15 minutes to read, so I'm going to pick points out. So you say good morning, you're introducing yourself. Act 1, chance mental dice, breaking the ice and introducing the intuition. Let's start with something seemingly random, something governed by chance. I have here a single die, show the regular examinable die, blah, 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 blah. Transition into Act 2. Okay, this act introduces the idea of unseen connections and your ability to perceive their thoughts, even through something as random as a dice roll. Transition to Act 2. Act 2 is the 1914 ESP cards, exploring perception and shared symbols. These are ESP cards. So what AI has done here is it's given us a complete breakdown of a set, including scripting, transitions, what to actually say to transition. They've not really gone through method, but they've gone through effect. Alice in Wonderland book test by Josh Sandman is the third act, which is connecting through imagination and shared narrative. Final act, Heartbeat by Juan Colas, leaving a tangible and emotional reminder. Thank you for allowing me to share these moments with you through this shared experience. Okay, so what you're asking here is what are your thoughts on AI to produce a working set? I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think that the applications of AI are limitless, and I think that magicians are only starting to scratch the surface of what it's actually capable of. I mean, what AI has done here, I assume the prompt that you've given it is create me a mentalism, something along the lines of create me a mentalism set and use these 3 tricks. It would be unlikely that AI would actually pluck 3 marketed tricks out and spit them back at you. I imagine you said create me a set with transitions and scripting using these 3 tricks. I want a mentalism set, or I want a set that's based on influence, or I want a strong beginning, strong close. And I think that's a great idea. I think that you'll need to. It's very unlikely that AI has produced a script that will fit with your character. It might have. There might be a chance, but it's unlikely. So you'll need to do a bit of work on it. But I do like the idea of having AI to create this set and come up with connections between different routines, because that will be a jumping off point for you to then expand on that yourself. So yeah, I mean, what do I think of it? I think it's great. I mean, mental die is a perfect opener. The way that they're using ESP cards by the looks of this is quite clever. The Alice in Wonderland book test by Josh Sandman is great, and so is Heartbeat. Yeah, it's a good set. It's a good set. I'd like to see you try it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all of those tricks work. AI has shown you how to connect them all together. Now it's a case of you actually doing it and seeing how it works. So good luck. Okay, so the next question is Magic Human 782, who says, what qualities would you say a good magician has, whether they're professional or a hobbyist? A good magician, I mean, it's subjective, isn't it? Like one person would say one thing while somebody else would say something different. what qualities would I say a good magician would have? Well, obviously, we're not going to go for they have to be good at magic. But I think certain quality, there's certain obvious things that you'd answer that question with, like they'd have to be good at magic, they'd have to have good technique, they'd have to, be a strong presenter, that sort of thing. But I'd say what you're looking for is qualities that maybe aren't that obvious. Whether you're a professional or a hobbyist, I'm going to completely skip the business stuff because obviously I've said many times on this channel there's certain things that a professional magician needs to be able to do when it comes to marketing and branding and so on and so forth. That hobbyist really isn't that, it's not important. But I think shared skills or shared qualities would be the ability to interject yourself into a conversation, the ability to be the most interesting person in the room. Because, whether you're a hobbyist or you're a professional, your job is really to show people magic and get them interested in seeing the magic that you're showing them. And that involves creating interest, creating intrigue. I think that's really important. I think being likable is another really good characteristic, like having the ability to walk up to a group and having them, immediately like you. Have you ever had that where you meet a person and instantly they're likable and you can't put a finger on it, why? But you instantly kind of like them? That's a skill that you can learn. Look up something like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and you'll see the techniques that you can learn in order to be able to do that. Because the thing is, as a professional, I have to walk up to groups of people that are having their own conversation. I have to interject and I have to get them not only to stop having those conversations, but to actually then watch me for a period of time and want to watch me. And if you're a hobbyist, a lot of the time you're going into social situations, people have no interest in seeing magic, and you've got to turn around to them and go, well, I do magic as a hobby. Would you like to see a trick? And that becomes so much easier if you have the ability to get people to like you. I think that's important. I think that regardless of who you are, I think the ability to tell stories in a really interesting way is a useful skill. It's a skill that I wish I did well. I can spin a story and make it kind of interesting, but I'm no Eugene Berger by any stretch of the imagination. But whether you're a storyteller in magic or you're not a storyteller, having the ability to tell a story and have people sit on the edge of their seat and want to actually listen to that story, I think that's important. I think it's also important to be able to show restraint. It's that old joke, isn't it? How do you get a magician to show you 10 card tricks? Ask them to show you one. A lot of the time, magicians will go, oh, I've got a trick, now I've got another trick, now I've got another trick, now I've got another trick, and you just can't shut them up, right? I think one of the best things that a magician can do is leave them wanting more. You've done a couple of tricks and they're going, oh, show me another one. You go, well, maybe later. Have the ability to kind of show restraint, not bore people to tears. Literally leave them wanting more, I think, is an important skill to be able to have. And those are the ones that spring instantly to mind. I actually think it's quite cool as a magician if you have other skills as well, like whether that be juggling or being able to solve a cube or, whatever the case should be. Because I think, if you do coin magic, having the ability to be able to do some basic flourishes and things like that, I think that's important as well, not necessary. None of this stuff is necessary, but I think it's, it's important. And then finally, I think vocal projection, having the ability to speak in a way that people want to listen to you. Have the ability to be able to command a room. And when I say command a room, I don't just mean standing up on stage and speaking to a group of people on stage, but I'm also talking about, doing it in a group of people. Or a group that's watching. I think that's really important, having that ability to project. And I've seen a lot of magicians in the past, not just social performers, but professionals as well, and they kind of look down, they don't have eye contact with the spectator, they're speaking but you can't really tell what they're saying. I think having the ability to speak clearly and confidently and charismatically, having the ability to get people to listen to you and be very clear in what you're saying, and be able to express yourself, not just vocally but also express yourself through facial expressions and body language, I think that's also useful because it helps make a good trick into a great trick. And I think one final point, I think it's good to be able to be creative. And I'm not talking about creative in terms of I'm going to create a new magic trick. I'm just talking about creative in terms of making a trick your own. You know, you buy a trick and you're not doing it the same way as everyone else. You're not saying the same thing as everyone else. You make the trick your own. I think having that level of creativity is really important as well. Okay, so Pankala says, hi Craig, you've said several times that you struggle but would like to learn the hot shortcuts. I recommend Alex Pandrea's hot shortcut tutorial and Lotus in Hand's hot shortcuts to refine the flight part of it. Unrelated side note for intermediate card magicians, I highly recommend learning the one-handed top palm. It's really worth the effort. Totally agree with you on the one-handed top palm. I probably use the one-handed top palm in close-up work way more than I do the classic palm. So I would agree with you 100% there. In fact, we should do a hows and whys on the one-handed top palm at some point. But the second thing is, I'm going to check those out. Like I say, it's something I've been trying to learn for years, and it's something that I would love to learn. And I can get by without it. I can shoot a card out of a deck 2 or 3 different ways, so it's not like it's ever hindered me, which is probably why I haven't put so much effort into it. But it would be something, if I could do it, I would probably be doing that all the time. So I'll check that out. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, so the next question is from Lucidus as Zeus, who says, hey, buddy. A few weeks ago, I asked about ideas for a children's magic book. I want the actual book to be special in some way. So now my question is, what's the right way to do that? For example, if I want the book to be made as a Sven pad, how do I go about it? Do I need to contact the creator? I have no idea who originally invented it. The same question applies for all the other tricks in the book, like coin transpositions, card forces, etc. How do I handle the rights or permissions for those? Right, that's a great question, and it's one that I don't really have the answer to because I've never written a book for the general public. However, I'm going to tell you who you should reach out to. One of the most knowledgeable people in magic, but also somebody who will happily help you if you contact him. And somebody who is just an all-round nice guy as well, and that's Nicholas Einhorn. Now, Nick Einhorn, the reason I suggest reaching out to Nick is because he's literally written the book when it comes to books for the general public. He's written a couple of big books on children's magic, you know, for beginners, whether that be an adult or a kid. He's written a couple of books, and he's put so much stuff in there. So, and knowing Nick like I do, he probably would have done the research into that as well. He wouldn't have just published a book and gone, well, you know, he would have done some research into it. In my opinion, there's certain things that are public domain that you would be able to put into the book straight away. But I know that there was stuff that went into Nick's book that maybe at the time wasn't public domain. I don't know, it's been a long time since I've read it, I might be wrong. And Nick will help you navigate those waters way better than I can. So I'd speak to Nick Einhorn. In terms of the Svengali thing, you know, turning the book into a colouring book, like I said to you before, I think that's a really good idea. The thing you've got to be careful of with sort of anything to do with Sven things is Brett Barry. I know Brett gets very upset when anybody does anything to do with Svengali principles in books or in pads or anything. But I mean, it was around before Brett. You know, colouring books have been around for years, and I'm pretty sure colouring books are public domain at this point. There's so many different companies that have produced colouring books, including Murphy's Magic. So I reckon it's probably public domain, but you know, just be careful if you're doing something that's kind of more Sven pad based, because you don't want to annoy Brett Barry. But a colouring book, you shouldn't be a problem. Outside of everything else, I would speak to Nick Einhorn. Okay, so the next question is Nightmare, who says, I think a lot about magic from a layman's perspective, and usually I find it difficult to imagine. I would compare it to learning a new language, and then you can never see or hear it again as you did before you understood it. Sometimes I'll feel weird about using a method that feels obvious, even though I know it wasn't obvious to me before I learnt it. Still kind of feels like they're going to know what I'm doing. Vanishing Bottle is a great example. It's kind of hard for me to imagine spectators not suspecting that something might be inside the bag even after you crumple it up. Well, what you're doing here is you're thinking like a magician, and that's something that is very common. And you know what? I've seen on Facebook groups in the past, I've said this on this channel a few times, are you thinking like a magician? And what I mean is you're worrying about something that ultimately you don't have to worry about, because I guarantee you lay people will not worry about that. And I've had people in Facebook groups, I've seen it, and I've seen people comment on my videos going, oh, the only reason creators say you're thinking like a magician is because they want to con you into thinking that this is going to work for lay people, and it's not. Now, that's not the case at all. Magicians think like magicians way too much. And one thing I try to do as a creator of magic is I try to get out of that headspace. You know, I spoke to somebody before. I was doing a lecture a little while ago, and I was doing a cards across routine that I published on. No, was it a cards across routine? Yeah, I think it was a cards across routine. The one that I published on visible cards across. And it involves a crosscut force. And the guy came up to me at the end of the lecture and he's like, oh, you know, do you really use the crosscut force? That will never work to lay people. They'll know what's going on. I'm like, no, they won't. No, they won't. I use the crosscut force all of the time. My attitude is I want to use the simplest possible means to achieve whatever effect that I want to achieve. Now, simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. It means direct. And the crosscut force is a very direct way to force a card. There's a million different things like that. You know, I've seen magicians that don't use thumb tips because they think that every lay person knows what a thumb tip is, even though I use thumb tips all the time. So yeah, you can't help yourself. Sometimes it is human nature to think like a magician. You know, you're talking about Vanishing Bottle. That is literally the opener to my cabaret show. Well, I've got 2 or 3 openers, but 9 times out of 10, I'm going to open with Vanishing Bottle. That's what I'm going to open with. I'm opening with Vanishing Bottle. The trick that you worry about because you're thinking, oh my God, what if people know it's in the bag? That's the trick that I use to open and establish credibility with my character. So that should tell you everything that you need to know, which is please don't worry about it. You know, now, if you do a trick and you're getting a vibe from the audience that they know how that's done, we'll change the trick. Absolutely 100%. But a lot of the time, the key thing when you're creating magic or you're even, you know, putting a show together is to try to not think like a magician and instead get yourself into the minds of a spectator, a genuine layperson. Okay, so the next question is from Divishan Magician, who says, can you make a hows and whys of an impression pad? But now can you say some good specific routines that it combined well with? Well, an impression pad, you know, I mean, it's any time. Good routines that it'll combine with is, honestly, any time that you need information that the spectator has written down that you don't know about. You know, anything. Yeah, that's the thing with the impression pad is it's a tool, it's a device, right? It's a device that's going to give you access to information that you don't apparently know. Now, how you use that information is up to you. It could be a very direct, write down the name of somebody, this is the name of the person you're thinking of. Or it could be that you incorporate that into a longer routine. So, for example, if you're doing the classic mental epic one ahead principle type thing, rather than forcing an item at the end, because a lot of people force a playing card, rather than doing that at the very beginning, get somebody to write something down. And you obviously know what that is because of the impression pad. And then you do the mental epic style one ahead routine. But the first thing that you do, instead of writing down the force card, for example, that you're going to use, you write down the thing that you've just peaked, which makes the whole routine so much stronger. So, you know, when you talk about what routines you can do it with, you just think the best way to do that is to think internally. Think of all of the routines that you do in your act that require you to have information that the audience is not aware that you have. And then ask yourself a question. Would that be improved with the use of an impression pad? Because there's only a point in using an impression pad if it will improve the routine. If it doesn't improve the routine, there's no point in it, right? So it's got to improve the routine. And it could work with playing cards as well. It doesn't have to be just secret information. So, for example, you know, do you do a card routine where you need somebody to name a card? And then once they've named that card, you go in a different direction. It could be a mem deck routine, for example, where somebody names a card, you cut the cards and you cut to the card that they've named. Would that be improved if they just wrote the card down? And you said to them, think of a card, write it down. Great. Now you've picked that information. Now you can do the same routine, but apparently it's never been said out loud. Well, would that be more impressive? What about an invisible deck routine, What about if they wrote down the name of the card that they're thinking of, and then you show there's one card turned over in the deck, they've never said it out loud, it turns out to be their card. So just think about how you can actually look at the tricks that you already do, and think about how the ability to be able to get that information secretly would help you. Okay, so the next question is from different.If Magician, who says, again, what should you say when somebody at an event asks why you have not been on BGT? What is a funny response rather than just saying, I've tried before, but I've not got on, because that sounds a bit of a boring reply. Well, yeah, you definitely don't want to say, I tried and they wouldn't have me. That doesn't sound great. At the end of the day, you're a promoter first and foremost. You're a marketer. As a professional magician, the first thing you've got to do is market yourself. I'll tell you, well, these days, when I get that question, I turn around and I go, well, to be honest, I'm not the most talented member of my family. That's my son, Ryland. He went through to the live semi-finals of Britain's Got Talent a couple of years ago. You might have heard of him, Ryland. And that starts a whole conversation. And the thing with close-up magic is a lot of the time, it's as important building connections with people as it is showing them magic. So, if I can have a 30-second conversation about Ryland, a minute conversation about Ryland on Britain's Got Talent, that will lead me. I do a trick with Ryland on my phone. I've got a pre-recorded video with Ryland on my phone revealing an information. It's like a digital confabulation. So I force 3 pieces of information and then I show them the video. And then a lot of the time I'll have the question about BGT kind of lead into that moment. Now you could, if you want to, if you know somebody that's been on Britain's Got Talent, you could do the same thing. You could actually have them record you a video. It could even just be a simple card reveal. You could have them film you a video. So, for example, you could say, why have you not been on BGT? Oh, my friends have been on it, but I'm not bothered. In fact, I'm really good friends with this person. In fact, they texted me the other day. They sent me a video. I haven't seen it yet. Do me a favour, pick a card. Let's look at the video together. Boom, miracle. Now, before Ryland went on Britain's Got Talent, I used to give a very sincere answer. It wasn't a jokey answer, but I gave them the answer as to why I would never do Britain's Got Talent. I gave them the truthful answer, which is, I say, look, the people that go on Britain's Got Talent, a lot of the time, they're looking for a big break. They're looking to take their business or their career to another level. And so they're taking a risk of going on live television and doing well in order to level up their career to the next level, which is great. If you're wanting to get that next level in your career, that's wonderful. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've got a huge client list. I've performed with some of the, for celebrities. I've performed for some of the biggest names in magic. I've performed for blue chip companies. And in all honesty, I'm not looking to take my career beyond where it is. I'm very happy with where I am. And there's no upside for me going on Britain's Got Talent. If I went on Britain's Got Talent and I did well, I don't think I'm going to go further than where I am at the moment, because I'm happy with where I am. I get the pick of gigs that I want to do. I never have to worry about getting gigs. And I'm performing for the who's who. I'm happy. But if I go on and I do badly, well, that could affect my career, because let's say something happens, because with live magic, things could happen. Things could go wrong. And if it did, and my client list saw that, they might look at me in a way where they go, well, maybe we won't book him for the event this year, or something like that. So, when I look at taking a risk, I look at what the best case scenario is. I look at what the worst case scenario is, and I weigh up my options. And honestly, there's no upside to going on Britain's Got Talent, but there is a massive downside. So that's what I used to say to people before Ryland went on. And people would go, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. And then they'd ask for a business card, or they'd ask me for details of how to book me, because I've been very honest with them. So try that, if you want to. But there's a few different options. Okay, so the next question is from different.If Magician, who says, what's your opinion in using roughing fluid for invisible palmaces? So there's a lot less chance that they'll split and they'll look like more than one card. Do you think this is good or unnecessary? Honestly, I think it's unnecessary, and I'm a huge fan of roughing fluid, but I don't think, if you're just using the roughing fluid to keep the pairs together and you're doing a standard invisible palm aces, just learn how to do the sleight, because then you'll be able to do it anytime, anywhere, Learn to drop a double on the table. Learn to do the Finley 10th vanish, or whatever version that you're learning. Learn how to do that. And that'll be a much better use of your time than roughing up one card. Now, if you've got a gimmicked invisible palm aces or open travelers that you're thinking about, and there's maybe a kicker where the aces turn into kings and the roughing fluid is helping hide those services as well as adding to the effect, then yeah, I'd say go for it. Absolutely, 100%. But if you're using it as a way of hiding bad technique, I would say don't take the easy way out and actually just put the work in. Okay, so the next question is from Darren Gregg, J3E, who says, "Hi Craig, I'm a Memdeck user and up till now I've avoided full shuffles and cuts, but now after being told by a spectator to shuffle the deck before you do anything and having to resort to doing so and hoping the majority of the deck stays in place, and now I want to add a full shuffle and a false cut to my routines. I'm learning the false overhand shuffle, but I'd really like to learn the false cut you use in your videos. I don't know if you know more than one, but the one you used on a lot of your videos with Matt and your Memdeck videos too. I've tried to follow you, but you do it fast, too fast for me to completely follow. Could you take me through it slowly on here? It looks brilliant and I'd really like to learn it. Thanks, Darren." Yeah, I don't have a deck of cards on me. I don't have a deck of cards on me. If I can find a deck of cards, remember I'm in Columbus right now. If I can find a deck of cards, you're going to see a tutorial for that false cut now. If, however, you don't see that video, ask me the question below again. And when I answer this next week in the studio, I'll have a pack of cards and a close-up map with me, and it'll be a lot easier to do it for you. Okay, so the next question is from Dylan1213, who says, "Hi Craig, do you think the Vanishing bottle makes a good opener?" Yeah, that's funny. "I've been thinking about this after chatting with another magician who said it's a great trick, but not an ideal opener. In their opinion, an opener should be quick, visual, and something that immediately earns the audience's respect. If it included a bit of comedy, even better, like cut and restored rope and ring on rope, for example. I agree with that, especially after seeing them do it, because the way they do it is fantastic. However, I think it really depends on the performer and their style. Personally, I feel the Vanishing Bottle can be a perfect opener. It's funny, it's got a strong magical moment, and it works well as an icebreaker. What are your thoughts? Can the Vanishing Bottle work as an opener in the right hands? And what other openers would you recommend, especially for a family or an adult stage show? And what's your take on opening with music? Sometimes I like to start with Smiley Face, Not Soft Silk to a fun track, and I find it sets a playful tone. Thanks." So yes, I think that Vanishing Bottle is an amazing opener. I think it's one of the best openers ever. I've used it to open up my show for years and years and years, because what it does for me is it does all those things that your friend talks about. It establishes credibility. I do it very, very quickly. It's fun. But at the same time, as well as being fun and it is magical. Again, sometimes we think like magicians and we think, well, it's not very magical. It is really magical. And I do this whole comedy bit where I'm putting my hand in the bag and I'm getting them to name a number and I'm guessing the number, that sort of thing. And then I go into a couple of funny moments where the bottle apparently disappears but doesn't. And then I do the Vanish of the Bottle. I think it's an amazing opener, I really do. So I'd recommend that as an opener, 100%. Other openers that you can use, if you want to. Invisible Deck, I think, makes a great opener. I really do think Invisible Deck makes a wonderful opener, especially for somebody who's doing more mental magic. I think that works really, really well. Another great opener, which I have seen many, many times, is the thing that Mark Shortland published, which is he's holding a jumbo card, and Mark does this brilliantly. It's his creation. He's published it somewhere, I can't remember where. He's holding a jumbo card, and he walks out on stage, and he's got this card, and he's got a ball. And he says, "I'm going to throw this ball into the audience. Whoever catches it, I want you to name a card. Whatever card you name, I'm going to have predicted it." So now he throws the ball in the audience, but it's on a piece of black elastic thread. So as he throws it, it goes right back to him like a yo-yo, and he looks at it surprised, and he goes, "7 of diamonds. Nailed it. Thank you." Now, he's a comedy magician. He does comedy magic. So for him, that's the perfect opener. There's nothing magic about it, but it establishes that what he's going to do is quite funny. That's what the Vanishing Bottle does for me. It establishes my character. It establishes the fact that this is going to be a funny show and I'm not going to take myself seriously and I'm just going to have a laugh with people. But there are going to be magical moments as well. Now, you talk about doing magic to music. That's how Ryland opens most of his shows. He opens most of his shows with a cane manipulation act. So he produces lots of different canes. He ends up producing fire. He's got more fire, canes, fire, canes. You know, it's a great opening. It's all done to music. When Ryland does his main sort of cabaret act, the first 17 minutes are done to music. And I love that. I think that's great. I think I've watched him do it many, many times, and it's a great opening to any show. So yeah, you know, that works well. Very, very well. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, so I think music is fine, and I think it just depends on the type of performer you are. I think it depends on the type of performer you are and the type of magic that you do, and what you want to establish yourself as, if that kind of makes sense. In the old days, I used to open with gypsy thread. For a long time, I'd open with gypsy thread, so I'd walk out, and as I'm doing the introduction, I'd be taking the thread and I'd be breaking it and then I'd be putting it all back together. That works really well as an opener as well. So yeah, I mean, try whichever opener you think is best, but don't be put off the Vanishing Bottle just because somebody says that it's not good. I've been opening with the Vanishing Bottle for about 20 years. Okay, Fixer says, hi Craig, I just wanted to ask how often you get busted on the paddle move. I like the idea of your trick spectrum Sharpie, but the paddle move doesn't seem deceptive enough. Makes me wonder, is that the main secret of the trick? It's just that my magician-y brain is not fooled by that. How often do people call you out on it? Never. I use the paddle move in the real world all of the time. There's lots of different routines that I use the paddle move for, and Spectrum Sharpie is pretty much my favourite opener now when it comes to doing walk around magic. And I have never, ever, ever been caught with the paddle move, ever. And I think that if you're worried about that, again, you know, this is the topic of this Q&A, but I think you're thinking like a magician. Go and do a paddle move trick. It doesn't have to be Spectrum Sharpie. Try anything. Try whichever one you want to. Go and do Turbo Stick by Richard Sanders. Go and do spot paddles. Go and do colour changing pen knives. Go and do number 2 pencil. I don't know. There's a million different paddle tricks. Go and do a hot rod. Go and do whatever it is that you go and do colour sticks by Alakazam and Eric Stevens. All of these routines use paddle moves, and if you go and do them, you'll realise just the power of it. And people don't see anything. To them, it looks like you're showing both sides of the object, and then something amazing happens. So I understand your concerns. All I can tell you is please don't be concerned. Okay, so the next question is from Yinhao Magic, who says, hi Craig, my question on last week's Q&A seems to have disappeared. I have no idea why. I don't make them disappear. I'm very sorry about that. I only actually look at these questions when I go to film the Q&A, unless one pops up. Anyway, question 1, what's the best way to reach out to you? Email, Facebook. You did mention sending something if I've been unable to contact you. The best way is to call me. The best way is to WhatsApp me. If you haven't got my WhatsApp, call me on Messenger. I'm not very good with messages. I'm just really not. And the reason is, you know, if I go in a lot of meetings, I have a lot of business stuff to do. There's a lot of times when I'm on a shoot or filming something like this when my phone's switched off, and I'll switch my phone on and I'll have like 100 messages. And I know I've got another meeting to get to in 10 minutes and it's almost overwhelming. And then by the end of the night, I'll be looking at literally about 200 messages. And genuinely, I try to get through as many as I can. But the problem is, it would be a full-time job answering everyone's messages. It's why I do this Q&A. But if you call me, there's a very good chance I'll answer. And if I don't answer, it's because I'm in a gig, I'm in a meeting. Feel free to call back again and again and again. But that's the best way to get hold of me. Okay, one more question from Yinhao Magic, who says, you mentioned arriving for a show and the stage being unsuitable for the show you prepared. Does this mean the tech rider did not serve its purpose? Yeah, I suppose you could say that. Sometimes people don't read the tech rider. Sometimes things will get changed. Sometimes there's a breakdown in communication between the client. Because a lot of the time, especially with big corporate events, there's so many moving parts. It can happen. Or sometimes, I've had it more than once where everything's been set up like I said, but then we get there and there's a band already there, for example, and they've taken their space and they refuse to move, and we don't want to get the client into an argument between the band and us, so we just try and make it work. There's a lot of different reasons why you would go into an event and it's not what you expected it to be. I'm a big believer in having a backup. I'm a big believer in not being caught in the lurch. So yeah, it can happen. Despite sending a technical rider, it can still happen. Okay, so the next question is Elkie, who says, "Hey Craig, I was just made aware of a product that came out earlier this month with a very similar premise to the one I've been working on for about a year and a half now. My version isn't close to release and very different in method, but I was hoping to release it at some point. How would you go about handling this? Should I contact the creator sooner and get permission before going ahead? Do I wait until my version is ready for the release and ask then, despite it being years away? Or is it less of a concern, since I can probably show I have been working in this space well before being aware of his version? Any help would be appreciated. Thanks." Typically in the industry, typically it's first to market. So in other words, if you've been working on something for years and you've not published it, and then somebody else publishes something that's identical, they're first to market. They got there first. That's just the way it is. And that's typically how a lot of this stuff goes. And I can't tell you the amount of times I've had to pull products because I found that somebody else has done something similar, and it's been a pain in the arse, to be perfectly honest. But it happens when you're creating magic. This is one of the things that you have to deal with. But in terms of what to do, I would contact the creator now, because what you don't want to do, trust me, and I tell you this from first-hand experience, what you don't want to do is get into a situation where you've spent money and time and effort putting all of this stuff in place, and then you contact the creator and the creator says no, because then you've got two options. The first option is you release it and probably getting into a flaming war, or the second option is you don't release it and then you've wasted all of your time, right? But it's best to know that right now. Now, I assume that there's not enough difference here. So you say my version is very different in method. So if your version is different in method, but the effect is identical, you might still be okay releasing it. Case in point, look at the invisible deck. Look at how many variations there's been on the invisible deck using different methods, using different techniques, some with regular decks, some downloads with memorized decks, some with different ways of actually doing the trick. There's so many different versions of that, right? It's the same effect, basically, but it's a completely different method. So if it's a completely different method, you could be okay, because one method might work for one person and not for the other, but I would still kind of contact the creator in that regard as well, and just say, look, I've been made aware of your trick. Mine is very different in terms of method, but the effect is the same. I'm years away from release. Would it be okay to release it? If they say no, you got some thinking to do. A lot of the time you are going to have to pull it. You don't want to get into a war on the internet. I mean, that's the reason that I left the community for 10 years, because of Red. This community will come down on you like a ton of bricks if they perceive that you've been in the wrong, right? So it's really important to try and be as squeaky clean as possible. I've found that a lot of the time, anytime anybody's asked me if they can release something, I've been asked quite a lot by people, oh, can I release this? I want to bring out a version of this. This is, my variation of something that you've done, or whatever the case may be. I've always said yes. And I think most creators do as well, because we understand. So I don't think there's a problem there. I think that depending on who the creator is, I don't think you'll have an issue. But you are going to get this stuff happen all the time. I've got a trick coming out in the next 2 or 3 months, and I found out very late in the process that although the effect was very different, methodologically it was similar to something that came out beforehand. And I stopped everything and reached out to the person and got their blessing and their permission to bring it out before I continued. I think doing the right thing is the most important, because here's the thing: if you're creative enough to have this trick that you're ready to release, or you're going to at some point release, then you're creative enough to do something else. So, unless it's one where you feel like you're in the right, and I point to EDC, I went to war with Michael Weber over EDC because I felt I was in the right, and I still do. I didn't pull that trick instead because I didn't think that, you know, Michael's point was, you know, his original version predated it, which it did, but it only sold about 50 copies in a magazine that wasn't available anymore, that no one can get. And, you know, you had to have, you know, you weren't allowed to talk about it. So, you know, I went back and forth with some people I trusted, and I decided to fight for that one. That's probably the only time I have done that. And it's really your decision. But I would start by contacting the person in hand. Okay, Jack Magic says, will you be at the theatre? I'm assuming you're meaning the P3 Theatre. Yeah, I've been there a couple of times. I'm going there today, actually. So I am going to be at the P3 Theatre. Yes, I'm here. Okay, so next question is Bay JMB, who says, another banger video. Great, thank you very much. What is your go-to close-up case? How do you organise props, gimmick cards, gimmick decks, coins, and any other magic items? How do you keep track of all of your effects and tricks that you learn? I've created a website to keep track of tricks and effects I have, and I would love to share it with you if you want to review it and give advice on it. Yes, please share it with me. I'm not as organised as you at all. I have like 5 or 6 close-up cases, and everything that I do is in those close-up cases. I typically use either the TCC cases or the Alakazam close-up cases, both of which are very, very good. How do I keep track of all of my tricks? I've just got a really good memory, and I've got lots and lots of notes. I've got like probably about 25 notebooks now of tricks I've created, ideas I've had for tricks, ideas for future tricks, like a whole bunch of different stuff. But my life is very chaotic when it comes to actually remembering this stuff. I just rely on the fact that I've got a good memory, so if my memory ever starts failing, I'm going to be screwed. But up until now, I've been okay. I do think, however, this is a good video that we could do. You know, I've been planning to do another What's in Craig's close-up case because I've had people want me to do that, but I could do a follow-up video of keeping track of various different tricks and everything. So, you know, organizational systems in Magic, we could talk about that. So I'll kind of put a video together that kind of touches on all of those points. Okay, so the next question is Raiden's World of Magic, who says, my question for last week was not addressed, although I posted it quite early. I'm very sorry, Ray, really sorry. My question is, I got a copy of CreditSwipe and my half-half card is not printed across the full width of the card. Was it printed this way intentionally, or are they misprinted? I'm guessing that in performance people don't notice the white outline, but I was wondering why the card was not printed completely as with all the other cards. Now, that's a great question, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of this because when I did the shoot, I was given a CreditSwipe. So the prototypes that I had was printed in full, and that's what I used to do the shoot. As I left the shoot, or not as I left the shoot, or a couple of weeks afterwards, when I got the final prototypes, it was printed like that with a white outline. And I actually said to Penguin, I actually prefer that, because if you're going to print a half and half card, it would make sense to look like that. So I said that's a really good idea. And I've just filmed Hows and Whys, not Hows and Whys, an expose for CreditSwipe, and you can see that the set I'm using now has the same printing on it, and I actually think it's better. However, a friend of mine did tell me that Penguin were sending another card out to him or something, but this is just pure speculation. I haven't actually spoken to Penguin about this yet, but what I'll do is I'll find out and I'll let you know. But from my point of view, the set that I'm using that's in my wallet right now actually uses that card where it's got a white border, because I think for that particular card, I actually think that looks better. Okay, so Randy Cape says, now everything makes sense. Craig was kissed by a unicorn, lucky bastard. I say that with love, Craig. Love the response to that. Good question. Yeah, dude, yes, kissed by a magical unicorn. That's exactly what happened, but just let's keep it to ourselves. Okay, so the next question, more of a statement, is by the Slight Company, who says, reference the spiderweb trick. I believe it's called Card Spider by Owen Magic Supreme. Hope that helps. Thank you so much. Your knowledge far exceeds mine. There you go. It's called the Card Spider by Owen Magic Supreme. Thank you for that. Okay, so the next question is from Brent Jacobs, who says, the internet is definitely destroying Magic. Lay people are getting more knowledge of our moves and our art. ChatGPT even tells us how trick works, and a lot of people are exposing Magic for money. We must make sure we are good at sleight of hand to come up with new ways for effects not to be revealed. Respectfully, I disagree completely. If it's destroying magic, then why is my company booking more gigs in than ever before? Why are magicians all over the UK, getting more gigs than ever before? Why are more people becoming professional magicians than ever before? Why is magic so popular and prevalent on TV more so than ever before? Why is all of this stuff happening? Why is magic king on AGT and BGT? Why are corporates and weddings and private parties wanting to book magic? Why, you know what I mean? I completely and totally disagree with you, and you're entitled to your opinion, buddy. Absolutely 100% entitled to your opinion. But I'm basing this on, I work a lot. I go out and perform a lot. And I'm not getting people saying, I know how that works, ChatGPT told me the method. That never happens, ever. Like ever. And so I disagree. Magic's in a boom period right now. Just ask any magic shop how much money they're making. I'm sure they're making money hand over fist. I disagree with you. I think that magic's in a great place, and I think the internet is a big part of that. But dude, that's just my opinion. You're entitled to your opinion as well, and that's fine. But I don't think, even if the internet was killing magic, which it's not, to say that we must make sure we're good at sleight of hand to come up with new ways and effects not revealed. Really? Is that the solution? The internet's killing magic, so let's get good at sleight of hand? If that's further proof that's the internet's not killing magic. Like the amount of people that say, I do an ambitious card and it kills. I just filmed a shoot for Murphy's Magic a few days ago, and I was filming for a new project. But while I was there, I was at Smoke and Mirrors, and while I was there, I was actually doing some other stuff as well. And I was just doing stuff like Ambitious Card and Triumph. Nothing new, the old classics. And people were freaking out. So, what? And if anybody was going to have an inkling as to how magic works, it's people that are buying tickets to go and watch a magic show in a magic bar. And I disagree. I don't think it's an issue at all. And even if it is, if you're a half-decent magician, you can get around it. Even if I could go up to somebody that goes, I've got a plastic thumb and I can make a hanky disappear, and I could show them a complete 15-minute set with a thumb tip, and they wouldn't even know. Look, it's your opinion, you're entitled to it. I disagree. Okay, next question is from Stephen Devereux, who says, Hi Craig, have you ever performed Bare Bones from Tenyo? No, don't even know what it is. But I'll look into it and I'll find out for you. Next question is Lee. How you doing, buddy? Who says, Hi Craig, how did you go about teaching Ryland magic when he first started? Did you tell him the method to tricks when he asked you? To what extent did you teach him versus letting him learn on his own? Was he open to your suggestions and critique? I have a 7-year-old son who's interested in performing magic, but he doesn't realise the practice required to be good, and I'm reluctant to tell him the method to my tricks unless I think he's capable of performing it well. Not sure if that's the right approach. I wrote an article on this in my book, Absolute Madness. The key thing is to make it fun, to make it a father-son activity, and to make it really fun, so make practice enjoyable. If your son doesn't particularly like practicing, which I totally understand, because most kids, you give them a trick and they're going to go, yep, got that. If they don't like practice, one, try to make sure they understand how important practice is. I remember Ryland, I remember using a football analogy, because at the time he was really into football, and I said, who's the best footballer in the world? And I said, do you think he was born that good, or do you think he got good? And he said he got good. And how do you think he got good? Because he's played football a lot. And I'm like, yeah, exactly, that's the same with magic. The more you do it, and the more you practice it, the better you're going to get at it. And one thing I tried to do was install the concept of practice right from the very beginning. And it's the same with anything that kids want to learn. You've got a kid that likes dance, and they have to spend hours practicing dance moves. A kid that likes learning to play the piano, have to spend hours practicing playing the piano. If they want to do something bad enough, they will want to practice it. And if they don't want to practice, maybe it's not for them, and that's fine. It's not for everybody. But I made practicing magic fun. I made it a father-son activity. I'd reward him with like sweets and stuff if he got the trick right, and we just made it fun, and I think that's the most important thing. Don't make it about the trick, don't make it about the practice session, make it about something that you're doing with your son, a shared love of this thing, and I think the other important thing is get him out showing magic to people that are going to react, so he realizes that what he does is impressive to those people, because then he's going to want those reactions again. And that's what I did with Ryland. I taught him a simple trick, and I said, you're going to do that to that person and they're going to be blown away, and you're going to want to do it again and again and again, and that's what happened. So yeah, I'd say the most important thing is make it fun, make it enjoyable, and show him that what he does has an impact on people. Okay, so the next question is from Splattered63, who says, hi Craig, could you comment on my set list and make suggestions or criticisms? Right, open with Tornado by Justin Flom and Rick Lax, or Monkey in the Middle by Bill Goldman, and then into Keymaster by Craig Petty, then Bandwidth by Greg Wilson, followed by Arrested by Adrian Vega. Love this, find it hilarious with the right banter. Then Point Blank by Greg Wilson, Joining into Imagine by Peter and Harry Nardi via a deck switch. Usually finish with that. However, if there's some drinking and carrying on and someone looks good to do Greg Wilson's interpretation of Kicker Sticker by Jamie Williams and Ronnie McGee, I'll finish with that. I'm looking to incorporate Bandit by Trick Trick Boom, either with a card to wallet or a card to phone reveal, but I haven't done this anyway yet. Looking forward to Stick Up arriving in the post so I can see what I can add from that. I have your chop. I can't seem to make it into a routine that suits me. I can't do it convincingly enough. Thanks, Craig. Okay, right. And there's nothing wrong with that. Not everything works for everybody, right? Chop works for me brilliantly, but it might not work for you, which is fine. That's not a problem. So Tornado is a good opener. I would open with Tornado over Monkey in the Middle, really, because with Monkey in the Middle, you're going to need a full deck of cards. So your opener involves bringing out a deck of cards just to then put them away to do a key trick, which kind of doesn't really make much of a sense. Especially as you're then bringing out a different deck of cards later on. So I would open, and I would move Arrested as well, by the way, because Arrested does use a deck of cards from memory, does it? I think it does use, hang on, let me find it. I think Arrested Magic Trick. I know the one you're talking about, I haven't seen it in ages. Yeah, choose chosen cards vanish from the deck. Yes. And I know that one. So I wouldn't, right, okay. So in my opinion, I would move Arrested. I would open with Tornado, brilliant trick, absolutely brilliant trick. I'd open with Tornado, and then that would allow me to say, let's see if we can take this to the next level. Let's see if we can take this to the next level. We're gonna try maybe somehow with playing cards I can switch things. So let's do something with a key. Then go into Keymaster, and then Keymaster is the perfect thing to go into Bandwidth, because obviously you've seen something with a key, but that's my key. Let's see if I can do something with something that you've got. Can I borrow a ring? And that's the perfect transition into Bandwidth. Then I would do Point Blank. And I'd bring out the deck and do Point Blank, fantastic routine, and it allows you to point out that the deck is blank and all of that fun stuff, and then go into Imagine, and then I'd go into Imagine. After Imagine, what I would do, so imagine the deck goes back to blank again. What I would do, actually, no. Here's what I'd do. Reverse. I'd start off with Tornado, right? Then I would go into Point Blank. So don't do Keymaster or Bandwidth. Open up with Tornado, then go into Point Blank, then go into Imagine, right? After that, you say, let me see if we can go one step further. I'm gonna need a key for this. I'm gonna need my keys. Put the deck back in the box, the blank deck back in the box, and then switch the deck in your back pocket as you're searching for the keys for Keymaster, and then put the box deck on the table. And they're going to think it's the same blank deck from earlier on. Now you do Keymaster, then you use the same lead-in to go into Bandwidth, right? So you go into Bandwidth. Then after Bandwidth, you can then say, I want to try and finish off with two more things, but I'm going to need a normal deck of cards. I can't use that blank deck. That's not going to work. And I don't want all the cards to be different. So I tell you what, if I snap my fingers, and now you open this up and all the cards are being printed, you've got an extra magical moment there. And then what I would do is, you could have that set up to do, because you're basically bringing in a fresh deck, you could ring in, you can have sticker kicker set up at the top of the deck. So you do sticker kicker, and then you can finish off, because you've got the deck in play, with arrested, which is your closer, which is great because you love that trick and you find it hilarious, and that's a really nice set. And that's kind of more of a logical flow, if that makes sense. You're not like bringing out a deck, putting it away, bringing out a blank deck, putting it away, bringing out another deck. Literally, they're going to think one deck is in play the entire time. So that's what I do. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, so the next question is from Fog10101, who says, the latest way of finding out how a trick works is to post the description of the trick they saw the magician do in a video, or in person, or on a particular subreddit. Yeah, people are going to do that, and they're going to get an answer. Some people are going to be correct, and they're going to go with the correct answer. Some people are going to be wrong. Who gives a shit? Who cares? Who cares whether people are looking for the answer to the trick or not? All you can do is perform. Look, it's this thing. It's called, as a motivational speaker, I talk about this, which is called control your controllables. You know, we can only control what we can control. If there's something we can't control, don't worry about it, right? There's nothing we can do. There's absolutely nothing that we can do to control what a spectator's going to do after your performance. Are some people going to Google and find out how the trick works, or go on subreddits, or go on Reddit? Yes, there's a chance they might do that. Will they get a reply telling you how it's done? Yes. Will they remember that the next day? No. Will it impact them booking a magician? No. Will they, if they were the sort of people that would potentially book a magician for an event or buy a ticket for a magic show, will they not now buy it because they've discovered that how the trick's done? No, they won't even remember. So who cares? Control your controllables. If something is out of your control, why even give it a second thought? It's kind of like, I had this conversation with a conspiracy theorist a little while ago. I met a conspiracy theorist at a gig who had a million different theories. Like, they were going on about everything, flat earth, like the whole thing, right? Everything. And they were like, why don't you believe? Why don't you believe? I'm like, one, I'm too busy to give it thought. I don't really care one way or another. But secondly, let's just assume that the earth is flat for a minute. Why it would be, I don't know. I don't know what we achieve by actually pretending that the earth is flat. But let's just assume for a minute that the earth is flat. What can I do about it? Is there anything I can do about it? No. There's not. I see videos of people, flat earthers, who have literally lost their family and their jobs because they are obsessed with proving this one thing. They're obsessed with proving it to the nth degree, to the point that their family have moved out, to the point that they have lost their job, and all they do is sit there 24/7 worrying about the earth being flat. What can they really do about it? Oh, Craig, well, if everyone took that approach, the world would go to shit. I don't think it will, right? And that's the thing. That's bringing it back into magic. It's exactly the same thing with magic. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is give the best possible performance that you can do, and don't worry about what happens afterwards. Okay, so the next question is from MexiMex, who says, wow, asking the waitstaff to go elsewhere when you're performing is such a terrible idea. I agree completely. And then somebody says, until the waitress blurts out the ending as she saw the routine on another table. That is literally written by somebody who's never done a gig in their entire life. That is written by somebody who's never done a gig in their entire life. As somebody who spent 30 years going to events and had waitstaff come over to me for 30 years, I have never, ever, ever had someone go, oh, I know how that works. The card's going to be on the top of the deck. Like, to even think that, you've got to have never gigged in your entire life. I don't mean to be mean, I don't mean to be funny, but that is just, you know, that's not ever going to happen, ever in a million years. Okay, so the next question is from Jackie Waku, who says, quick comment for the coin prediction. With 5 amounts instead of 6, you can set up a quiver with different amounts on each side and perform quinter extreme to force one of the 2 values. Very good idea. Now a quick question. Do you have any tricks you love to play with but not perform for people? For me, I love Tenyo's Invisible Zone, and I have it at my desk, but it's not my style when I perform. Yeah, pretty much all the Tenyo stuff. I love fiddling around with plastic shit. that I just know I'm never going to do. But and you know what I've got into recently, and I don't really do it at gigs at all, is sponge ball stuff. I've been creating a bunch of sponge ball type routines. I don't do sponge balls at gigs. Rarely will I do sponge balls at gigs, but I've been playing around with some really fun techniques with sponge balls recently that I think are quite unique. So yeah, sponge balls, Tenyo stuff, just cheap plastic stuff. That's the sort of things that I like to play around with, that I know I'm never going to do at a gig, but it's just fun to practice, right? Next question is from Rick Reaction, who says, not a question but a request. I love that you break these videos into chapters. Could you do the same to the Magic News videos? Well, it's really down to Michael. Michael, are you watching this? I'm going to be sending this to him. I'm filming it in America. He'll be editing it in the UK. Michael, if you're listening, can we do the chapters as well? Let's put at the bottom of the screen, yes, Craig, we can, or something, I don't know. It'll be Michael that would set that up. I know it takes him a long time and we have a lot to do, but if we can make that happen, we will. Okay, so the next question is from Yandor the Trickster, who says, I'll be up near Cleveland mid-June. How long will you be in Columbus? It'll be a pleasure to meet you if possible. I'm going on Sunday. I'm going to be back on Sunday, unfortunately. But I come to Columbus all the time, so it's worth checking out. I know I've got at least 3 more trips to Columbus planned throughout the rest of the year, if not more. So I'm in Columbus all the time, so it's always worth checking. And yesterday I was in Cleveland because I've actually got my family here with me, so it's not all work. It's a lot of play. I've got my family with me. It's half term, so I've got the fam here with me. And yeah, I was up in Cleveland yesterday with Sarah and Ryland and Thea. We went to the big theme park up there, King's something or other, which was incredible. And I was scared to death because roller coasters scare me. So there you go. Okay, so the next question is from Doc Orbo, who says, hi Craig, thanks for your videos, talks and all, you're more than welcome. Here you get my thoughts on who and what harms magic. Magicians harm magic by calling it tricks. Nobody likes to be tricked, but everybody loves something that is special just for them. I understand where you're coming from, and there's this whole debate, isn't there, where it's not, we should, you know, it's not a magic trick. We're performance artists. We are creating a piece of theatre for people to enjoy. And you know, if you're that sort of magician, that is great. I 100% agree with you. My style is that of a trickster, a con artist, somebody who has spent years learning a technique that I am going to use to entertain them and fool them. That is my style. I don't ever pretend that what I do is real. I actually say to people, I'm going to show you some sleight of hand. It's going to look like magic, but it's not. It's a trick. So for me, and this is why magic's subjective, this is why every opinion is subjective. Everything that I say on any video that goes up on Magic TV, it's only my opinion. It's subjective. It doesn't mean I'm right. You are 100% correct. I can tell the type of performer you are. You do not want to call magic tricks tricks. Absolutely. And there's many other people that I'm very good friends with that would be exactly the same. But for me, I have no problem referring to what I do as a trick. But that's because I'm understanding my style, I understand my character. Okay, so the next question is from Trixie Tom, who says, hey Craig, not a question as such, but a couple of comments. Firstly, it was love to briefly speak to you at Tricks the other week, and thank you for signing my Cheeky deck. I remember. You're more than welcome. Thank you for picking up Cheeky. Secondly, I tour the holiday park circuits and I use solo at every show. Every single person in the DJ box is so happy when I tell them I'm controlling every track myself, so they have nothing to worry about. I definitely recommend solo to anyone that has a lot of music cues in their show. I forgot to mention at Tricks that your videos get me through a lot of hours on my drive to holiday park gigs, so thank you for all your hard work in creating these videos. One, you're more than welcome. Thank you, that's why I do this channel. Second of all, I love solo. Like I say, if I was a solo performer, see what I did there, I would have that in a heartbeat. But whenever I use music cues, I've got an assistant in the wings and she can do it for me. That's the main reason, in all honesty. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Solo is amazing. Okay, next question is from Ann Parchatara, who says, hi Craig, where can we learn sign card under watch? Say something about your version of card under watch. Right, okay, good news. Next upload onto Netrix, I'm actually putting a card under watch tutorial on there, mainly because so many people have asked me to teach them card under watch, and it's something I do an awful lot. So if you want to learn how to do my card under watch routine, if you're a Netrix member, the next upload to the Netrix, which I think is a week on Monday, is going to be a full breakdown of how to do card under watch, including various different loading techniques. Okay, so the final question today is from Skippy Pictures, who says, "Hi Craig, it's been 2 to 3 weeks since I told you I was going to do my first kid show, and it's done. And the first thing I can say is I've learned a lot. Of course, I didn't repeat enough, but I knew that. I didn't put too much pressure on myself. It's for my stepson's birthday, and I took that as an exercise. In any case, a test to see if I really liked it." Well, the answer is yes, I liked it a lot. There were not many children, and everyone knew each other, school friends, 6-year-olds, perfect. I live in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. The reactions are more Swiss-made than made in the USA. And my wife films, my sister-in-law takes care of the daughter. I realised that I had too many tricks. I didn't want to exceed 40 minutes, but suddenly I had run a little and then even forgotten the penultimate trick, a card revelation with a scarf fountain, which justified a pile of scarves I had from the beginning. In short, I learned about my body rotations or placing the child. Overall, I was a little sloppy in the finishing of the tricks. I know what I have to work on now, but thanks to your advice, I dared. And I liked it. Making children laugh and dream, there's nothing better in the world apart from maybe being them. I am, of course, open to your advice. If you want to watch the video that has been privately linked, I had to cut a turn because of the music, problem with copyright on YouTube. On the other hand, sorry everything is in French. Thanks for reading, and sorry if it's boring and a little long. No, it's not. Right, I'm going to have a look at that video. I'm not going to look at it now because that will be too long, but I'm going to look at it and I will get back to you about that in the next week or two. What I will say is congratulations. I will say this, as this is the last question, I will finish with this. Here's the thing. There are thousands of people that come into magic all of the time. Some people will come into magic, and whenever anybody finds magic, they realise this wonderful world that opens up to them, and they realise just how expansive it is. They'll start buying tricks, and they'll become secret searchers. I talked about this on the Magician's Pyramid Triangle the other week, and they become, they'll just buy everything. And they'll buy everything, and they'll learn everything, and they'll think they're great because they know all the secrets, but they don't actually go and perform. And they want to perform. Most people who don't perform want to perform, but they never get to that point. A lot of people that come into magic, they leave. People will come into magic and leave after 3 months, leave after 6 months. It's like any hobby. You start it and you finish it. We meet these people out and about at gigs. When you go up to a table and you say, "Oh, I want to do some magic," and they turn around to you and go, "Oh, I used to do magic a few years ago. Oh, I haven't done it in years. I don't even think I can hold a pack of cards now." But we meet these people that come into magic, they do it for a while and they leave, and there's nothing wrong with that. But very few people actually take that leap. Very few people actually take that leap where they're going and actually performing to real people in a real environment at a real gig. And that's what you've done. And you should pat yourself on the back. If you never do another gig again, you've probably done more than 90% of people in this industry will ever do. You have gone out and you have performed. You've taken the tricks that you've learned, you've scripted them, you've put it together, and you've realised you've liked it. Performing is like a drug. You go and do it, you want to do it more, you want to do it more, you want to do it more. You are at the start of an incredible journey, and I want to say congratulations. Congratulations on taking that step. Congratulations on actually going out and doing it, conquering your fears and going out and performing to real people. And I guarantee you it's the start of a wonderful journey. And the more you do this, the more you're going to fall in love with it. Congratulations. So there you go, guys. That's another video in the bag. Thank you once again for joining me right here on Magic TV. Now, don't forget, you want to see more videos like this, all you got to do is like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. I'm going to be back again later on today with a review show special, so make sure you look out for that. There's a whole bunch of content I've put out this week, which you can look at as well. But I'll be back again on Monday with another video, so make sure you look out for that. Outside of that, I want to say thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Don't forget, if you haven't already done so, please join the Netrix. It's www.thenetrix.com. It's my online streaming platform for magicians. I'll see you again. My name's Craig, and this is Magic TV.